So glad to have you all here. I'm Tanea of TPK Feng Shui and Design, and I help people create relaxing, rejuvenating, inspired spaces to live and work in through Feng Shui and Design. And I'm so excited to have you here with me today and to get to spend the next hour and a little bit talking with you about transitioning your home from where it could be, where it may be in a state of chaos and clutter, may or may not be there, into a state of really calm and connected. And sometimes your home is in that space, and sometimes your life is in that space, right? In that space of overwhelm and busyness, and you really want to be calm and connected. And so oftentimes your space will be there as well, but everyone is at a different starting point. So today we'll talk about creating an inspiring home that reflects and allows in the life that you really want. But before we begin, I'm going to ask a few things of you. I'm going to go ahead and have you, if you're able, type into the chat bar, just say hi or hello. I'll write a little message there, just so that I know you can hear me. So hello, everyone. And that way, that's a good place also to let me know if anything's going a little awry. Just type something into the chat bar and I'll be able to remedy that. So glad to have you here with me if you're joining me just now. Oh, fantastic. Great. Everyone can hear me. Love it. So before we begin, I'm going to ask a few things of you. First, I want you to be fully present. So if you're here, it's because you're meant to be here, right? Something in the universe guided you here today so that you could hear a particular message that I have to share with you. So give yourself that gift of being fully present. So this is particularly important around electronics. So turn off your phone. I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Turn off your email, turn off your Facebook, anything that gives you a little ding every now and again. You want that off so that you can be fully present here today. And it's just really a gift to be able to give yourself that lack of distraction and being in the present. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on as well, that kind of distraction and all the ways that that can affect your well-being. So this is incredibly valuable information that I'm sharing with you today. It's not fluff. It's the real information that I share with my clients all the time to help them transform and transition from that overwhelm that I know we've all felt into a place where you can be in your space and be present with your loved ones and really begin to live your life on your own terms. So when you're fully present, you'll get what you need out of the conversation. Again, pop your questions and comments throughout into the chat bar at any time in the webinar. I'll do a Q&A at the end as well, but we're going to be using the chat function a lot just to get your comments in there and your questions. So don't hesitate to pop something in there. I'm going to have stories to share with you throughout of people who I've worked with in my own journey that will make you feel better about where you are right now. So really don't hold back. And stick around to the end. I have a gift to share with all of you who are here at the end that you're going to love. It's a tip sheet on bringing more abundance into your life. And I'm also going to do a little live drawing for a free hour-long consultation. So stick around to the end so that you can access those. And this is what the next hour will look like. I will pull up a few pictures here and there to kind of illustrate a few points, but really I'm just going to be here present with you. And I feel like it's a better way to connect. So with all of that, today we're going to make the connection between your emotions, so how you feel, and the state of your space. We'll delve into how important it is to organize and clear out the things that weigh you down in your space. But before we touch on that, we're going to do some exercise, an exercise around mindset, because it's incredibly difficult to make progress when you're kind of self-sabotaging, when your own limiting beliefs are holding you back. And so we'll get into that a little bit as well. And we're not going to clear away all of the limiting beliefs that you have today. That's an ongoing process for those of you who have done that work. But we are going to try to become aware of them, which is really the first step in towards allowing yourself to move away from that belief that's holding you back. And so right now, I want to debunk a myth. The myth is that your space has to look perfect and be organized and tidy before you can feel good. So, right, for many of us, myself included, I just love to have my space feel just right before I can really settle and relax and feel home and feel good about my surroundings. But guess what? If you don't feel good right now in your space, then you won't feel good in your space once you've achieved whatever goal it is that you have. Life is all about enjoying the journey. So when you're happy on the journey, you know you'll be happy with the destination. When you're unhappy on the journey, you won't be happy when you arrive either. I'll share with you where I was before I had a space that was really only full of the things that I love, which was the majority of my life up until a couple of years ago. And I spent way too much of my time picking up after everyone. I have 2 kids and a husband who likes to leave things in random places. And I spent a lot of time picking up after everyone. And I felt really resentful for that I was the one that had to do that, right? That's how I felt. I was also frustrated that I spent so much of my time that way. So even once I'd spent that hour at least that it took me to clean up at the end of every day, I didn't feel good about my space. I just spent an hour sending frustration and resentment into my space. So if you're not happy on the journey, the destination won't make you happy either. It's all about shifting your mindset ever so slightly to be able to recognize the ways that you want to feel, and to consciously feel them today and recognize the times that you feel them today. So say you want a clutter-free home and a life that feels less chaotic. Well, then take note every day of every little way in which you feel calm, or where life feels easy, or when things flow smoothly. It doesn't matter if it's in your space or not. You're just taking note of all those little times. So I'll give you an example. This morning, I had a really good example of this because when I went out to take my kids to school, my car was dead, right? It was running great, and then it was just dead. So instead of kind of getting flustered and like, oh, nothing's going right for me, I was really thankful because as we were getting into the car, my kind of carpool buddy up the street had called me and said, oh, we're just getting into the car if you want to get a ride. So I was just overjoyed that there was this, that I didn't have to figure out another way to get my kids to school. And then I reached out to my neighbor to jumpstart my car, and I was really thankful for my neighbors and for the opportunity to say hi to someone that I haven't been able to say hi to in a while. So when you have those moments of choosing to see the positive in a difficult situation, and I don't always do this, right? Sometimes I have difficult situations and it just feels plain difficult. But when you are able to take a breath and really see like what's positive here, there's got to be something that's positive, because in every situation there's a positive and there's a negative. That is kind of the scientific law of the universe. And whenever you're able to focus on that positive, you attract more of that positive into your life. And we'll talk about this a little bit more later. There are so many ways every day that you can begin to notice that calm and that connection and that inspiration rather than focusing on the chaos and the overwhelm. And so right now in the chat bar, I just want you to type in one thing that you're feeling really grateful for or really thankful for. It can be tiny. It can be really little, right? I'm thankful that my home is keeping me warm. I'm thankful that I have this time to listen to this away from my family. It's time just for me. Whatever it is for you, just type into the chat bar something that you're really feeling grateful for, because that mindset piece is so very important. And so we're going to start off and do a short little journaling exercise to get really clear on what you want. And this is how I start working with most of my clients, not necessarily these questions, but getting clear on what you want. And so some of you may have seen this when I sent it out this morning. If so, great. I sent out a little one-page journaling exercise at the last minute. And if you haven't seen it, it doesn't matter. We're going to go through it just briefly right now to get really clear on what you want. So Amy is thankful for stillness. I hear you, Amy. That sounds lovely. So right now, what I want you to do is you can get out a pen and paper, or you can type something into the chat bar, or you can think about where you are today in your space. What's kind of irking you about your space? What makes it so that you're not able to relax in your own home? So go ahead and type that into the chat bar, or just write down a few things, or think in your mind, where are you today in your space? Why aren't you able to relax fully in your own space? I'm going to write down too. Gwen I hear you, Gwen, on the paper clutter. That's what really is driving her crazy about her space today, or making it hard to relax in your own home. And paper is such a big one for so many people. I fully hear you out there. So once you've had a moment to presence what is driving you crazy about your space, why you're not able to relax. Amy has unfinished projects. That is so big, so very big. I did a blog post a while back on all the unfinished projects and how we all have about 40 hours of unfinished projects hanging out in our homes, and how crazy that can make you feel. That's really big. So now that you've really presenced what is hard for you in your space, and where you are today in your space, now I want you to think about where you want to be in your space, right? How you want your space to make you feel. How do you want to feel in your space? Yeah, I see that, calm and relaxed. Absolutely, right? We want to be able to come home and relax in our own home. We all have these full lives that happen outside of our spaces. And when we come home, we really need to be able to rejuvenate, to feel like we can restore our energy stores, right? We can really just like get cozy and calm and have it spacious. Amy, I hear you, have it be whole and spacious where you want to be. So you really have to presence that problem in order to come up with a solution. But because you always, always, always want to focus on what's working for you, I want you to think about the ways in which you feel that today. So Amy wants to feel whole and spacious in her space, and Gwen wants to feel calm and relaxed in her space. So I want you to think about a way in which you feel calm and relaxed today, Gwen, or whole and spacious today. Because there are so many little ways. It doesn't have to be in your space, right? It can be any little thing that you have happen to you throughout the day, and to really notice the ways in which you feel that way. And you may or may not be able to come up with an example of that right now, but that's your homework for after this webinar. I want you to notice all the ways in which you feel the way that you want to feel right now in your daily life, right? I want to feel whole and spacious. So notice all those little ways in which you feel whole and spacious today already, right? Now I want you to think about how you want your space to support you 90 days from now. 3 months down the line, how do you want your space to better support you? And go ahead and type that into the chat bar. Let me know what greater support you need in your home, or what you're looking for in 3 months' time. And what next, I want you to think about what, if any, are the behaviors that are stopping you from achieving what you want in your space in 3 months. Most of the time you have an idea, right? An inkling. And again, that might be something that you sit down and you journal on after the call, potentially. What are the behaviors that are stopping you, right? Your own kind of self-sabotaging things. And we all have them. And when we can become aware of them, that's when you can change them. Good. Debbie wants to feel easeful and safe and happy. Fantastic. There's a little bit of a lag in the chat, but that's okay. It's so nice to have you all writing in there. And the last thing, and I'm just going to roll through these because I want to get going on the good stuff, but what are you telling yourself that keeps you from taking the actions necessary to live the life that you want? What are you telling yourself that keeps you from taking those actions, right? Something like, that project's too big, I don't even know where to start. I don't have the time to start, right? All those things that we tell ourselves, which may or may not be true, but when that's what's looping in your mind, then it certainly becomes true in your life. Thoughts and words just have so much power. Fear of winter coming, Patricia, I hear you. And I wonder if that fear is coming from that kind of, your space is about to get a little bit smaller. If you live in a place like I do, where winter means less outdoor space. So the last two ones I just want you to think about briefly. The second to last question, will you commit to changing these stories and letting go of the past? Because you need to make a commitment to yourself to be able to do that right here and now in order to move forward, right? And why is now the time for you to break through? What's going on in your life right now? Why is now the time for you to let go of those stories, to enable yourself to live a different way? Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that. And first, today, we're going to presence the problem that you feel in your space, because without identifying that problem, we can't really talk about a solution, right? We can't have a solution to something we don't know that the problem is. So we're going to talk about the problem and what that looks like. And that looks different for everybody, but really there are these commonalities that I've found in working with so many clients and in talking with so many people about their space. And oftentimes those commonalities are in those spaces of overwhelm and being too busy. And so right now today, I'm going to put out 5 steadfast rules about how your space affects your life. And when you take these rules into account, you will be able to create an inspiring home that reflects what you want in life, that allows in what you want in life. And you'll be able to move from that life that feels cluttered and chaotic to one that feels overwhelmingly calm and connected to what you love. So rule number 1, and I'll put these over into the chat bar so that you remember them, or if anyone comes in late, you can have them. But rule number 1 is your space is a reflection of yourself. Your space is a reflection of yourself, right? So if you don't like how you feel, you change the space around you. If you don't like how you feel, you can change the space around you to feel better. There is a very clear space-mind connection. When you are overwhelmed by the state of your space or your home or your desk or your office, it is really difficult for your mind to not also be in that place of overwhelm, right? Everyone has felt that before. Everyone has. So right now, I want you to type it in the chat bar if you feel this connection between your space and your life, how your space feels right now and your life. So you can just type one word into the chat bar, right? That might be overwhelm. Your space feels overwhelming. Your life feels overwhelming. So if you can think of something in your life that connects like that, my space feels this way, my life feels this way, go ahead and type that into the chat bar so I really know where you are. And you know, that place of overwhelm is not a place where it is healthy to be for very long. That stress, that exhaustion, those feelings quickly come to really negatively impact your life. They can have an incredible impact on the relationships with the people around you. I see this really often. I work with a lot of people who have relationships that they feel like are stagnating or they're not going well. And oftentimes it's because their space around them is also in this place of overwhelm and stress. It can really negatively impact your work, right? Your performance, your happiness at work, your mindset around how you perceive your work. It affects your health when things are cluttered, when things are on the floor or piled up or just haven't been touched and loved. It creates stagnation in your life. It creates stagnation in your body and in your mind. It affects your ability, having a space that's stressful and exhausting and overwhelming. It affects your ability to bring in abundance and wealth and money into your life, to allow that to flow freely into your life. You can really only see what is in front of you. And when what is in front of you is chaotic, life begins to feel overwhelming and out of control. When what is around you is clutter, then so much stuff does not have a home. Your attention is divided. It's distracted. It makes it really difficult to focus. When your space feels cluttered or overwhelming, it's really hard to bring order and ease into your life because all you see is clutter and overwhelm. So I'll tell you a story of a client of mine who took my course, and she has 3 kids, and she's been in her home for 10 years, and they've just been accumulating all that time. They run their own business, and all this stuff from that business is a business that has a lot of stuff. And so all that stuff in their business, they have to reincorporate back into their home every year. And they have this beautiful home, and it's just lovely. But, you know, the bedrooms and the rec room in particular were just lined and stacked with storage items, you know, multiple armoires. And I'm actually going to share my screen here and show you some images of the before and after space, just to really show you what I'm talking about here. So let me share that screen for you. Okay, so everyone should be able to see some before pictures here. So there's a rec room on the top, and when we started working together, and let me just scroll down so you all can see, you know, just shelves stacked next to one another, lining full walls, right? Both in the rec room and in bedrooms. And it was just really reflective of how that was exactly what was going on in her mind, right? Just stacking one thing on top of another. Okay, we need more, so I'm just going to add this to the top. And, you know, she told me when we started working together that there was nothing more appealing than clearing her mind. Her time was way too full. All of the things she wanted to do and had said yes to, right? So volunteering and being very active at our kids' school, things that she liked, made it so that she had zero time for herself, zero time to get her space in order. So here are some kids' rooms beforehand, and all of her projects felt way too big. So I apologize for the blurry picture, but I have to show you this picture of her bedroom because you can see so all of her stuff felt way too big to even start. She never even wanted to begin. And so in my course, we start by clearing out the clothing and beginning to really practice feeling your joy. And we go on to create a bedroom oasis, a space where you can go and decompress when the rest of your home is still in a state of opening and releasing, which can be a chaotic state. And so her bedroom, you know, she joked about how her bedside table, all the books on her bedside table was like a Jenga puzzle. And you can see that, right? I have not worked with another client who had quite so many books stacked one on top of the other. And she thought, well, if I put it here, I'll certainly read it. When clearly, you know, when you get to this point, clearly that's not happening, right? And you can see a second little bedside table type thing right next to the armoire that has another stack of books. And looking at that is clearly overwhelming, right? And so I'll scroll through the other side of her bedroom, which didn't look quite as bad, but again, just things lining the wall. And you can actually see in the corner underneath that plant is actually a toilet, right? A spray painted literal toilet. It was kind of this gag gift that got passed around in her family. And I just said, you can't have that in your bedroom. Like, that is clearly not the energy that you want in your bedroom. And, you know, she had a walk-in closet, a full walk-in closet, but she still had those 2 armoires stacked against the wall in her bedroom. And, you know, one full drawer of those armoires turned out, she was like, I don't even know what's in here. And she opened up the bottom drawer and she had an entire drawer full of holy socks that had holes in them. And it felt wasteful for her to toss them. She thought that surely she would do some sort of project with them with her daughter. And on the armoires also, you can see they're cluttered with the family photos, nothing recent, right? Just the ones from 5-10 years ago. And so a very stagnant space. You can just feel the weight of it. And after she cleared her clothing and kept only what brought her joy, She easily moved out an entire armoire. And then we moved on to create a bedroom oasis. That's the next step that we take, really, because your bedroom is incredibly important for all things in your life. When you're not sleeping well, then it affects all the areas of your life. And the state of your bedroom can really affect the state of your sleep. If you're waking up in the middle of the night, if you're having a hard time going to sleep, if you're waking up not feeling rested, there are all kinds of things in the bedroom that you can do to feel better and to sleep well. And so we move on to the bedroom very early on because we want to remedy all of those problems so that you can feel your best going forward. And so she was very proud of her bedside table. At the end, clearly, she took the crib out from under her bed, the one she hadn't used in 8 years. She cleared out the family photos. The bedroom is really not a space for the family photos because, you know, when you're being intimate with your partner, the last thing you want is grandma and your kids staring you down from behind the frames. And, you know, she realized the bedside table. She realized when she went through her bedside table, all those books at the bottom, she found this catalog at the bottom that was a catalog. And this is a client that I worked with a year ago. And she found a catalog at the bottom from 1998, right? Some Christmas items that she, you know, cornered the pages so that she could potentially get them. And then she had those books stacked up for, you know, 15 years. Something like that, 10 years. It's incredible. And when she finally made the final push and finished her bedroom oasis late into the night, I'm going to go back to that late into the night picture with the lights that she put up. And when she finally made that push and finished her bedroom, she was so excited. She'd been talking about it with her kids all week, and it felt so amazing. And her youngest son came and climbed into bed with her in the middle of the night. And as he was falling asleep, he said, "Ah, your bedroom oasis." And in the morning, the kids were so excited to come and see it. And they each wanted their own bedroom oasis, right? None of them actually wanted to clean their room necessarily, but they wanted the feeling that she was having, right? That inspired energy, that lightness. And I'm telling you, there are many moments that are full of joy when you get into the process of making space in your home. And she went through the process in the rest of her home, which can mean things get a bit worse before they get better. And she found that she could always come back to her bedroom and soak up that feeling of joy and ease in order to feel that calm that she yearned for, and also to help inspire her to take that next step in her home. And what I've found is that it's really helpful when you have at least one space in your home that is a little mini oasis. And it doesn't even have to be a full bedroom. It can be an altar. It can be a closet. Then as her spaces began to be full of only the things she loved, her life really began to ease as well. She would open up the mail and pay the bills right when they arrived instead of piling it up to deal with it later. She told me that this fall, when they returned from their summer of work up in the mountains, she was able to clean and put away all of the gear in a matter of weeks when it typically would be undone into November. So I'm going to stop screen sharing with you all. There we go. So you can see me. So I tell you all of this to illustrate how this problem of accumulation of stuff comes to affect the best of us. It doesn't matter how big your space is or what your space looks like. It really doesn't matter how much stuff you have. Clearly, when you have more stuff, it's more accumulation. But you can feel this way about your space, this chaotic about your space, when you have a lot less stuff than other people. So I want you to take a look around your space and really be honest with yourself and ask, is my space reflecting the way my life is going right now? Right? So earlier we talked about, how life was feeling stuck and my space was feeling stuck coming into the chat. There are things around me that no longer serve me. My space feels unorganized and my life feels unorganized. So take a look around you with a little perspective. And I want you to also think, is my space a reflection of the life that I want to live? And overwhelmingly, the response will be no, right? And that's okay. In my own life, I moved into a much smaller apartment with my husband because we moved to Santa Cruz, California. And the reality of living in Santa Cruz, California, where it's beautiful and everybody wants to live, is that space is really expensive. So we moved from the East Coast from 1,300 square feet to a 500 square foot, lovely apartment in this old Victorian house that we loved. But we'd gotten rid of a lot of stuff before we moved, but not nearly enough. And so our space was just packed in the beginning, right? Our closets were packed, our space was packed, and you could just feel it. Like it was well laid out. I'm a space person, this is what I do, but it was just packed. And this was, well before, years before I really got to the root of that problem, which is just too much stuff. So my space reflected that at that time in my life, I hadn't done a lot of that self-work that allowed me to grow. I hadn't unpacked those dusty closets full of emotional baggage. I just packed it all in and shut the doors, like literally and also in my emotional body. And over the years of living in that space, we let go of more and more because it was very clear that the space was too full. And it began to open up these avenues for self-realization and, quite honestly, for being happy. And so as you open up that space, it opens up space in your life to be happy. So you can understand clearly now how your space is a reflection of yourself. Then this next rule number 2, is not that far out of reach. So I'm going to put it in the chat bar as well. But rule number 2 is that everything you own is attached to you by an energetic tie or a thread, right? Everything you own is attached to you energetically. You can imagine it like this, right? Like every single object, every little thing you own, whether it's in your house or in your garage or in your mom's basement, imagine every little thing you own having this little thread attached to you, this little, like a little spider web, right? Attached to you. And the items that don't make you happy, the ones that don't inspire you, they're like this weight. They pull down on your energetic body. Right? It makes your energetic body, makes your physical body also feel more exhausted, right? It saps your energy. And then there are things that do make you happy, because we all have plenty of stuff that does make us happy. And those things are also attached to us, these little threads, but they're like balloons, right? They lift you up and they lighten your load. Too many balloons can be really cumbersome, but just the right number of balloons and you can float, right? You can soar. So I want to do a brief guided visualization with you. And if you've been with me for any amount of time, you may have done this before, but humor me and just let your body sink into how it feels in your body. And so if you are in a place where you can close your eyes fully or almost fully, and that feels right, go ahead and do so. And I want you to picture an object in your home, something that you don't like. Right? We all have something in our home. It could be an object. It could be a piece of furniture. It could be a paint color. It could be a whole room. Just picture something that you don't like. And I want you to notice how that object, just thinking about that object, makes you feel. Often it'll make you feel a little weighty or heavy or weighed down. And it's not a comfortable feeling, but I want you to resist the urge to think about something else and just focus on how that object that you don't like makes you feel inside your body. Notice where you feel that weight. Notice how that feels. It's different for everyone. And sit with that discomfort for a while. Be okay with having that discomfort in your body and just imagining it. And really feel the weight of that object. Take a deep breath, and now I want you to picture an object in your home that you love, that you absolutely adore. And when that object comes to mind, I want you to notice the immediate shift that you feel in your body. How you feel differently, how differently you feel when you focus on something you love. And really soak up that feeling, because that feels good. Often people will feel a lightness, an upward movement, a lifting of that weight. And again, I want you to take notice of where in your body you feel that. Is it in your heart space? Is it in your throat? Is it all the way up to your crown? Is it down in your gut? And just take a moment to soak up that feeling of lightness and love and inspiration. Because the more you focus on that type of feeling, the more you have that in your life. And you can open your eyes and go ahead and type into the chat bar how the object that you didn't love made you feel. Could you feel the weight of that? Type that into the chat bar, how it made you feel. For me, it was like a dampness, putting out of a fire. You can just feel like a weight, like heaviness. Just type into the chat bar how that made you feel, that weight. And then I want you to type into the chat bar how tense, yeah, resentful. Yeah, absolutely. So now I want you to type into the chat bar how you felt, how the object made you feel that you loved. Could you feel the lightness of it? Yeah, Amy felt obligated or weighed down when she had that, and she was picturing something that she didn't love. And I love that, that you bring up the obligation, right? The should do's, the things that you should do, because that is very associated with things that you don't love, right? I should do this. I don't really want to do this, right? And when you're acting from that place of should do, you're not acting from a place of alignment, and it can be really difficult to kind of feel aligned, right? So type into the chat bar, let's uplift ourselves a little bit. How did you feel when you focused on that object that you loved? So as you do that, I just want to tell you that we all have so much stuff around us that doesn't make us happy. I really used to as well. I didn't even, when I thought about the idea of only having things around me that made me happy, I didn't even think it was possible. I never thought about my space in that light. So everybody has that. And, I'd been purging and organizing and decluttering and creating flow for years. And yet I still had bags and bags of stuff that I cleared out that didn't bring me joy. So all of this stuff that doesn't make you happy, it makes it more difficult to feel your joy, to know with certainty what makes you happy. It clouds your clarity. It's like this haze that you have to see through, this clutter, if you will, right? Too much stuff makes it really difficult to appreciate what does bring you joy. It crowds out the important things in your life. And the same is true in the rest of your life. When you say yes to too many activities or too many responsibilities, when you say yes out of obligation, just like Amy said, rather than because your heart says yes, then life begins to pull you down, make you unhappy, weigh you down. And let me tell you, when your space is full of things that you don't love, it's really easy for your life to begin to fill up with those duties that you don't love. Because back to rule number 1, your space reflects yourself. So the problem with everything having these energetic threads attached to you is not really the physical weight of things, but the emotional weight. So let's talk about that briefly, because this is a huge reason why it's so difficult to part with things. We all have emotional attachments to objects. These attachments, they often hold you back from making the progress that you want to make. When people go through their things, they have all kinds of old memories that come up for them. And that's okay to have those memories, right? But 2 stories come to mind when I think about memories that came up with people that I worked with that were weighty memories that they didn't want to keep. And so I had a woman that I worked with, and she didn't have that much stuff necessarily, but the stuff that she did have felt really overwhelming and cluttered, and it was really weighty for her in the beginning. And she had been out of the country for a couple years and had stored a bunch of stuff, mainly the photographs and the mementos, that sort of thing. And when she came back, she really didn't know what to do with that stuff. It was just, she hadn't needed it for years, but it's mementos and it's photographs. She's just not going to toss it all, right? And so when she was going through her stuff, she had also been through a relationship earlier on, not that recently, but a relationship that really ended in a lot of hurt and a lot of mistrust. And that can be a really difficult thing to move on from. And she didn't she wasn't in a space where she felt like that was still holding her back. However, she really wanted to be in a relationship, and she's this amazing, wonderful woman, right? She just has so many things going for her. She's fantastic. And she wanted to be in this relationship that was really meaningful. And she hadn't been able to get to that place. She had some relationships, but nothing that panned out. And when she went through her things, when she went through her mementos, she found that she was still holding on to, whether or not, I don't know if she knew that she was holding on to it or not, but she was holding on to this ring that this past boyfriend had given to her. It was a ring that he made for her, and she just didn't know what to do with it, right? She's like, do I throw it away? Like, he made it, right? Like, what do I do with this thing? And so it made it really difficult for her to part with it. And after she'd been through all her stuff, she didn't get through it until the end. You really don't hit on mementos until the end because they're the most difficult. They bring up the most stories for you. And so when she got to it, she was in this place where she thought, she actually talked with her sister, and her sister said, you can give it to me and I'll deal with it for you. Like, her sister had some emotional angst that she wanted to get rid of around this relationship that had ended so poorly. And, she was like, maybe I'll give it to a homeless person on the street and he can take it to the pawn shop and get some money for it. Maybe I'll, she wasn't sure what to do with it, but she knew that she was going to get rid of it. Right. And so whenever you go through your things, there are going to be things that hold attachments, that hold emotional weight to them. And the second example is, it's another extreme example of something that's really weighty. And so not all your items are going to be like this, but there are things that you don't expect that hold emotional weight. And so for this person that I worked with, it was a shirt that held this weight. She was going through her clothing, and clothing was kind of hard for her. She was having a really hard time because she had this shirt that she'd gotten at a festival. She makes jewelry, beautiful jewelry, and she sells them at festivals. And she'd been at this festival and she'd got this shirt, and she'd had this wonderful weekend where she'd had these enlightening moments where she really felt like she was making progress, and in terms of her own self-knowledge, right? And she had this shirt, and it wasn't bringing joy for her. When she picked it up, it did not bring her joy, and she was trying to get to the bottom of it. And it turns out when she dug a little bit deeper that the weekend she got that shirt was actually the weekend that her then husband had been cheating on her. And she discovered this a few weeks later. And so it wasn't like the shirt automatically had that connection for her, but when she went back to it, it did. And so we're all holding on to these things that have these emotional weight, that don't make us happy, that sometimes have these emotional connections that are things you want to let go of, right? But trouble is, often we don't even know that we hold such negative emotional states in regards to our stuff we can't let go of until you make that decision to really let go of the things that don't make you happy. Because holding on to that pain or that hurt is holding yourself back from having a new relationship in these cases. There are so many ways that we hold ourselves back when we hold on to stuff that no longer serves us, when we have too many energetic threads attached to us. So that brings us to our next rule. Rule number 3. When your space is full, you don't have any room for new opportunities to come and find you. When your space is full, you don't have room for new opportunities. And I'm going to put that into the chat bar. Rule number 3. Because that's a really big one. That's a really important one. We all want different things than what we have right now, right? That's part of the human experience. That's nothing to be ashamed of. You want more money to more easily come into your life. You want a new relationship in your life, or you might want an improved relationship, one that is easy and supportive. You want to be happier at work. You want to be more productive. You want to be more fulfilled in your life's passions, right? We all want these things. And when these things flow easily into your life, it doesn't mean that you're taking more than your fair share. There are enough of these things to go around, right? In fact, when you live a happier, more productive life based on what you're passionate about, you are setting the best example you can for the other people in your life, for your kids, for your friends, for your spouse. But there's no space for anything new to come and find you when your space is full or cluttered. When your filing cabinets are jam-packed, when all your surfaces are full, when your closets are so full they feel like they're going to fall out on top of you when you open the doors. So I already, gave you two examples of women who were kind of unknowingly almost holding on to things in their life that were crowding out the space for new relationships. And often our stuff is unintentionally taking up that space. It's crowding our existence with all kinds of things from our past. So we literally do not have space for new experiences, for what is in alignment with you right now. And I had a couple other examples, but I'm going to skip over those right now because I want to move it along a little bit. So when your space is crowded, you have no room for those new openings to come into your life, those opportunities. And, I just want to point out also that opportunity is not always what you expect, but it will be an opportunity that is in alignment with what you want right now, with where you are right now. And that means that if you're feeling overwhelmed and you make a little space, then more overwhelm comes into your life. If you're feeling kind of even keeled, but a little stagnant, then probably not much of anything comes into your life except a little more stagnation. But when you're feeling great, great opportunities come your way because they are the ones that are aligned with how you currently feel. So that goes back to the mindset piece that we were looking at the very beginning of that call, and the looking for ways to feel good and feel great and feel the way you want to feel today, right now, no matter what is happening around you. Because when you feel that way, that's what you attract into your life, which leads me to our next rule. Rule number 4, to create an inspiring home that reflects and allows in the life that you really want. Rule number 4 is like attracts like. So many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the scientific law of attraction. So for instance, I'll give you an example because my space is not perfect either, right? So in my home, I have this dresser right outside our bathroom. It's this little nook, and it used to have this changing table on it when my daughter was young enough to need a changing table. And now it has some of her clothing in it, and the top is clear, ideally. So, but there's this little basket of, wet wipe, washable wet wipes. And then I put on this desk, on this armoire, this set of hooks that I needed to fix, right? It had fallen down and I needed to fix it. And so I put this set of hooks there. And then before I knew it, there was all this clothing that I needed to pass along that my daughter had grown out of that I just piled up on top of the dresser. And then my robe was on top of the dresser. And then there are all these little things because you don't think twice about putting something down there because it already is full of things, right? But when it's clear, you make a different decision. When you're faced with putting something down that doesn't belong there and you have a clear space, you make the decision to put it away or put it somewhere else that is already cluttered. And that happens to the best of us, right? That is the scientific law of attraction. Like attracts like. So if you put something down that's unfinished, it's going to begin to attract more and more unfinished things. So whatever you have in abundance right now, more of that will come your way. And whatever you feel in abundance, you will continue to feel. That means that if you have an abundantly overwhelming and full closet, that you will attract more overwhelm and busyness into your life. However, when you focus on how you feel when your closet is organized and when it only has the things that you love, even if your closet isn't there yet, right? How does that feel? That feels thrilling and spacious and clear and exciting. Then you attract more of those feelings your way. Right? Short and sweet, like attracts like. And that leads me to rule number 5 about creating the space that allows in the life that you want. Rule number 5 is when your space is too full, so is your time. When your space is too full, so is your time. When your space feels overwhelming and exhausting, your time also feels too full. You're overwhelmed by all the things that you need to accomplish. You're exhausted by the sheer pace of your life. And this is particularly true because 90+% of us is, living in these consumer-based societies have way more stuff in our lives than we can ever appreciate in this lifetime. It's a cultural thing. It's not a personal problem that we all have. It's a cultural problem. So when you have more stuff than you can ever pay attention to, you will also have more things floating around in your mind than you can ever pay attention to, right? And it's exhausting to try to give your attention to so much stuff physically and mentally. It's exhausting. It creates more in your life that you have to attend to, right? It creates more of the to-do lists, the schedules, the kids' activities, the social engagements. And all of those things on their own may be fun when you're in a state where you can where you can see the positivity in them. But when you're in this state of overwhelm, it's hard to see any of that positivity out of the next thing that you have to add to your to-do list, no matter if it's, a fun party that you get to go to and hang out with your friends, right? That might be too much. So not only that, but we spend so much more time managing our stuff than we realize. It's not just the literal time, although that is significant, right? The significant time that we spend purging and organizing the garage yet again, or cleaning out the basement from all the weighty stuff that likes to settle in there. Okay, Kim's asking me if I can retype number 4 into the chat, please. Yes, number 4 is like attracts like, and I just forgot to put a number sign in front of it, so it might not have been clear, but like attracts like is number 4. There you go, Kim. So we spend so much time on these things. We spend finding the time to purchase and the organizational systems and then implement them, the time to clean out the closets that somehow always revert back to overflowing, to fix the things that break, to find homes for the things that we have. We spend time looking for what we need that we never end up finding. When your space is too full, you can't even find half of the things that you need, and that is stressful. So that's some of it, but the more insidious part of that is the mental time that we spend fretting about those things, thinking about and getting anxious about all the things we need to do, but we don't really want to do, and thus don't make time for, don't have time to do, and don't make time for. We spend so much of our mental capacity thinking about the things that we have to do that by the time we actually get to them, we've probably spent 10 times as much time worrying about the project than it will ever take to complete the project. And this is how we're filling up our mental space and our time, this time that we have in this precious body. And is that really how you want to spend your time? Like, no, of course not, right? Nobody does. So when you clear out the physical stuff in your life that doesn't bring you joy, you also clear away all the mental chatter that doesn't make you happy. You clear out the to-do list in your mind. You make your space more spacious. You make space for the things and the people and the experiences that you truly love, and you spend your time in the way that you really want to, rather than doing what you should do, like we talked about earlier. When you want to feel like you have more time to do, you want to feel like you have more time to do what you love. And when you want to feel that way, you just need to get rid of the physical items in your space that don't make you happy. So type into the chat bar right now the things that you want to be doing with your time, right? The ways that you would love to spend your time that maybe you feel like you don't have time for. Because this is different for everyone, but it's really important to get clear on how I will spend my time when my space does not take up so much of my time, my physical time, my mental time. So pop it in there because it feels good to focus on that, right? It's as simple as that. You keep what you love, you get rid of everything else. So yes, it's simple, but it's not always easy. So what's the problem? Why have we not all cleared out our spaces once and for all if we know how much it negatively impacts our state of mind? Yeah, so Kim wants to create new business interests. Great. Yeah. Oh, Gwen wants to dance. I love it. I want to dance more too. That sounds fantastic. So get clear on what you do want, right? That's super important. So the problem is not that you're unorganized, right? You may feel unorganized sometimes, but that's not the problem. The problem, I'll give you an example of that, right? The problem is not that you're unorganized, because early on in my career, I used to go in and help people organize their stuff. And what I found that was really frustrating for me was that, and frustrating for them, I'm sure as well, is that when I would go in and organize a space, it could look amazing when I left, but in some amount of time, sometimes a short amount of time, sometimes a long amount of time, a week, a month, a year, in some amount of time, it would devolve back to the way it had always been, right? It wasn't making that final lasting impact that I wanted to be able to have in people's lives, that I wanted people to not have to think about it again, because when they spend more time thinking about it, that just creates more of the problem. And so the problem is not that you're unorganized, right? The problem is not that you're lazy or you're unwilling to do the work. The problem isn't that you haven't tried, right? Because in fact, most of the people I've worked with, and I imagine all of the people on this call who, have tried all kinds of different things to clear and organize their space, to make it feel good. I bet you've tried out a whole host of different systems. There's so many systems out there that that, are touted to work. Like, the one that says wear 30 pieces of clothing for 30 days, and then you'll realize that you don't need much more, something like that. But you can't put a number on something like how much stuff feels right to you. That's personal. Or the one that really irks me, the system that really irks me that I may have tried out early on in life, but I know some of my clients have tried out, is to box up everything that you don't need, that you don't think you need, right? I don't think I need this. I'm going to box it up and put it into the attic or the garage or the basement for 6 months or a year. And first off, in feng shui, the feng shui meter in me is just going, oh, that's such a bad idea, because all that stuff, when you box up all the stuff in your life that you don't think you really want, it's literally, and put it up in the attic, it's literally hanging over your head. That's your future self, and it's just hanging over your head, all that stuff you don't like, right? When you go through it again, some of those things may become easier to part with because you haven't needed them, but some of them will still, bring up those memories, right? They still do, and it's not going to be easy to get rid of them. And so, there's a note of truth in all of those systems, right? Which is why we get pulled into thinking they might work, because you do have to change your mindset around the things that you own in order to realize that it's okay to live with less, that you will have everything you need when you get rid of the things that don't make you happy. But sometimes that's easier said than done. The problem is really that you've probably never really identified the bigger issues at play. You maybe thought that you needed better organization in your closet. You thought you needed to purge the kids' rooms again. You thought you needed more space because yours felt too crowded or feels too crowded. You thought the problem was everybody else's stuff around you, right? I really fell into that trap for years. I was culled down. I was fine. All my stuff was fine, but my husband, he could stand to get rid of some stuff, right? The root of the problem is not that your stuff is not as organized as it needs to be, though it may be, or not that you constantly have to purge in order to keep on top of things. The root of the problem is not that you need more space or that everyone around you has more stuff than they need, although they may. The root of the problem is that you have too much stuff, more than you can ever appreciate in this lifetime, right? We all do. So try as you might to organize the stuff that you've decided to keep. It will always deteriorate again because you have too much of it. So that's easy enough, right? If I have too much stuff, I should just be able to purge with it and be done with it, right? So yes and no. So at the beginning, we started with the mindset piece. And at some point in the process of going through your things, sometimes it's before you even begin, before you've touched one thing, when you've just thought about starting the process, all the reasons why you need to keep the things that don't make you happy, that no longer serve you, they begin to surface. Right? When you just think about doing that process, your mindset is holding you back. And that will show up it shows up as two different things. It shows up either as a fear for the future, right? I might need that when. And when you're living your life that way, which is how I lived before I did the KonMari process in my space, which we'll talk about a little bit, which is this process of only keeping what makes you happy. Right. But I really lived with that. Like, I might need that when. It was instilled in me. My parents are that way. Right. It was this thing that I had learned. I might need that when. I collected lots of things and then organized them very well. But when you're afraid, when you're saying, I might need that in the future because of this, you're saying to your future self that you will not be supported in the future. And then that is the reality you create for yourself. I want to say that again. When you're afraid that you won't be provided for in the future, when that's the loop playing in your head you may or may not be aware of, then you create a reality where you're not provided for in the future. The other way that it comes up is this attachment to the past, right? That reminds me of this time when. And sometimes the attachment is something silly, like my client that I worked with who had the whole drawer full of holy socks, right? It would be wasteful to get rid of that. She had this attachment to it, like, oh, and maybe it was that fear for the future too. I might be able to do a project. What about when I want to do that project and I need all these holy socks? So the thing is, if what comes up for you, if that attachment that comes up for you is a happy memory and it makes you feel happy in your body, and that's the important part, then you should keep that thing. But if not, then you shouldn't keep that thing. And that's the genius of Marie Kondo's decluttering system, the KonMari method, which is what I use. And it's that you aren't asking to get, she's not asking you, I'm not asking you to get rid of anything that makes you happy, right? You get to keep everything that makes you happy. And we've all experienced these limiting beliefs, these mindsets. And I was the queen, like I said, of keeping things just in case. And it became really clear once I had gone through all my stuff. You know, I'm a project person. I'm crafty. I'm artsy. I like to do lots of different projects. And so I would keep all these things because I thought, oh, it'd be good for this project. So I understand the holy sock feeling. But, you know, when I finally cleared out once and for all the stuff that didn't make me happy, and it became really clear which projects I actually wanted to spend my time doing. And so now I have I think I have 2 different types of projects that I do, and everything else that I used to keep, I don't have because they don't make me happy. Actually, it just kind of adds to that to-do list of things I should be doing. So sometimes for more of us than we originally realize, our stuff acts as a distraction from the real issues in our life that we don't really want to face. So that's another thing that comes up for people. The stuff is this buffer from dealing with the emotional stuff, because once you clear out, as you clear out the stuff that doesn't make you happy, the emotional stuff comes up, the emotional stuff that doesn't make you happy. And, you know, when you clear away that stuff that doesn't make you happy, sometimes, and this has not actually happened with a client of mine, but I feel like people have this fear that sometimes when you clear away everything that doesn't make you happy, sometimes you realize your whole life has been full of stuff that doesn't make you happy, that maybe makes somebody else happy. And maybe you haven't thought about what makes you happy in a long time. And that part, the not considering what makes you happy, is something that that is a problem for a lot of people. That was a problem for me when I began to say, okay, does this shirt make me happy? It was really difficult for me to feel what that happiness felt like in me, because I had been, you know, paying attention to everyone else's happiness for so long. So the process of clearing out what doesn't inspire joy, it brings you closer to your true, authentic self. It makes it clear what you do love, and it makes it easy to say no to the things that don't inspire you, which brings us back to the part about how you have more time when you have less stuff to deal with. So the problem isn't that, you know, so there are a few problems, clearly. We've touched on what the problem isn't, and we've touched on a few things that the problem is, the mindset piece. And often the problem for people is that they don't know where to start or how to move forward, right? Just this big thing, like, I've got to get rid of everything I don't love. And how in the world do I do this? I can read Marie Kondo's book, which is fantastic, and I recommend you do if that resonates for you. But in order to, you know, be completely successful, decluttering once and for all. And that's the important part, because the problem is that you've probably tried so many different systems to get your stuff in check that you're just constantly decluttering, and it's demoralizing to even start again because it didn't work the last time. You're just constantly doing it, and then things get back to their original state. And so you don't even start again, and you fret about how you need to clean the garage or cull the outdated toys from your kids' room, but you don't make time to do anything about it because life is just too damn full. And because really, like, where would you start and where would you find the time? And last time you did it, it didn't work. And so that's the beauty in Marie Kondo's system, is that you're decluttering once and for all. And when you are listening to your joy, you're really able to do that. It's amazing. It's fantastic. I worked on decluttering for 10 years before I found her system, and it's incredibly efficient and effective. So I want to let you in on a secret. So simplifying your space, it's not about less, right? It's about more. And so what I mean by that is, in the system, you focus on what you're keeping, right? You're focusing on what brings you joy, because that brings you more joy into your life. You're focusing on what makes you happy. It's this really small, incremental, but important shift. So rather than focusing on what you need to get rid of, right, which is what I always used to do. Oh, I've got to get rid of that. I've got to get rid of that. You're focusing on what you keep. And when you simplify your space and you get more clear on your joy, on what makes you happy, you have more time to spend doing what you love. You have more time to devote to your loved ones. It's all about more. It's about more beauty in your life, and more joy, and more calm, and more connection. And so we've presenced the problems, And we're at an hour here, and I'm just going to go on for about 5 minutes, and then we'll do a Q&A. But we presence the problems and those 5 rules to live by in order to create that inspiring home for yourself that reflects what you want and allows in what you want. So let's take a look at the solution, which is something that I have boiled down over the years to the most basic steps to make it so much easier for you than it was for me. I took this very winding path towards getting there. And so I want to make it easy for you. And it's really 3 simple steps that I walk my clients through in the Clear Your Space, Clear Your Mind course, and I will outline them here for you today. So first, the first step is we use feng shui to set really powerful intentions. And we set intentions for every area of your life. In feng shui, there are 9 different areas of your life that you lay out on your floor plan of your home. So there's an area of your life for every area of your home. And you really get down in those intentions to how you feel. And so I set intentions every single morning. And sometimes it takes me a few minutes and sometimes I spend a lot longer on it. But I set my intentions every morning and they always start out with I am, right? I am feeling this way. No matter how I'm feeling in the moment. Like today, this is how I want to feel. And so I am feeling this way. And you get down to how you want to feel. And when you begin to feel that in your body, again, you attract more of that to you. So when you go through this decluttering process, which is the second part, but before we get there, when you go through the decluttering process and you look at, okay, my closet, I'm starting in my closet, and my closet happens to be in my relationship area of your house. So when you're standing at your front door, looking into your home, your relationship corner is that back right corner of your home. From your front door, the back right corner of your home. And oftentimes your bedroom and your closet will fall in that. It doesn't have to. Sometimes it's in your abundance area. It can be anywhere. But so you're taking note. A lot of people, it's in the relationship area. So as you're decluttering, you're saying, this is my relationship area of my life. What's my intention? How do I want to feel in this particular area of my life? And it makes it so much more powerful as you do that work to put that energy into your space and to be really clear about what you want in that area of your life, because then you create a space that reflects what you want in that area of your life. Second, so we use feng shui to set really powerful intentions and know what area of our life we're setting intentions in. Second, we use the KonMari method, which I've mentioned, to declutter and to tidy. And that means at its most basic that you keep what brings you joy. You keep what makes you happy, what inspires you. And you focus on what you're keeping, not what you're releasing. And you're decluttering once and for all. When you complete the process, you'll never declutter again. It's amazing, right? As a parent of 2, I cannot tell you how much time that frees up for me to be present with my kids. I used to constantly be decluttering, constantly. And now, we pick up what we haven't put back in its home. You're always going to have to do that. And I still have a bag that hangs by the front door, that's stuff that's heading to the thrift store, because everything is always changing. That's the nature of life, including what brings me joy. And I'll often come across something that no longer serves me, and I'll thank that item for all that it's done, and I'll pass it along to somebody else who will appreciate it, right? But that job, that decluttering and finding homes for the things, this is, if you follow the KonMari method, it's the last time you'll ever declutter your own things, right? It's amazing. And the third piece, so first, feng shui for powerful intentions. Second, the KonMari method to declutter and focus on your joy. And third, you need to use mindful awareness to become aware of the limiting beliefs that hold you back. We all have them. Becoming aware of those thought patterns, of those things that you tell yourself that are not true, that hold you back, that's the first step. And once you're aware, you can change your story. In working through those, feeling the discomfort, your natural instinct is to move away from that discomfort. When you feel something uncomfortable, you can, do something to make yourself feel comfortable. You can distract yourself with something, and stuff is often a common distractor. But when you do this, when you're moving away from anything that feels uncomfortable, then you'll never break through to that transformation that is available to you on the other side. So we work a lot on not getting stuck with these different mindset techniques, with guided visualizations and meditations, because as you go through your stuff, there's constantly a discomfort that will come up with the things that are weighty, that don't bring you joy, that you will pass along. So right now, I don't know if all of you can feel it, but I just feel this momentum of the fall. I have this urge to get busy, like all the little squirrels that are collecting nuts right now, to get my space in order before the winter. And everyone I talk to is cleaning out their garage or thinking about cleaning out their garage or feeling anxious about it because they haven't done it yet. But now is really the time to capitalize on that natural momentum that you feel with the change of seasons, because it is this natural momentum. No one wants to put in the time in the heat of the summer. That's the time to be out enjoying yourself, being with your wider community and in your natural surroundings. But right now is really the time to listen to your instinct. And so I really encourage you to do that and move inward into your home to make your space feel really ready for the coming winter. It's not all that complicated, right? You use the KonMari method to declutter and keep what you love, feng shui intentions to work to make that work infinitely more powerful, and mindful awareness to get through your blocks, the limiting beliefs that hold you back. But the irony is that if you're not enjoying where you are right now in your space or in your greater life, you won't enjoy the goal either. So it's time to get clear on what you want and find that feeling of joy, of happiness, or curiosity in your life in every moment that you're able. My course is about letting go of what you don't enjoy and finding joy in the present moment and inspiring and energizing yourself and your space in the here and now. And the number one reason why people take my course instead of undergoing the process on their own, which some people absolutely can be successful at, but the number one reason that people take my course instead is to have support, right? That clear path, each little baby step outlined for you. And the momentum of the community is infectious. We do weekly calls that help you through blocks that maybe you weren't even aware that you had. And those are the hardest type to do anything about, right? When you're not aware of a belief that holds you back, you can't change it. And the number two reason why people take my course is to have the accountability, to help you push through and finish that one category that you really wanted to finish before our call, instead of saying, you know what, I'm tired, I'll get to it later, because we all know that often later doesn't happen. So if you're inspired to have a space that reflects what you want in life and allows in what you want, then head over to my course page and check it out. I'll put it in the chat bar as well so that you can click on it. And the next 10-week session of my course starts at the end of the month or the beginning of October. It's this perfect time to capitalize on that energy and just get it done. For those of you who are on the fence, who might be interested, but you're not 100% sure, obviously take a look at the course page. There's so much information there so that you can know if it's for you or not. But if you want to talk about your specific situation and whether or not I can help, I'm really happy to hop on the phone with you. And at the very bottom of my course page, there is a link where you can set up a time to talk with me, or you can just drop me an email and we'll set up a half hour to talk. I'm not going to be able to talk with all of you who are on the phone, but I'm really happy to talk with those of you who are really motivated to make this change in your life, to create that reflection of what you want in your space, to have that space where you have new opportunities that can come and find you and affords you the time to do what you love with the people who are important to you. So with that, I want to open up the call to a wider Q&A. And we've had so many great, comments coming through on the chat, and I kind of sped things up there at the end. But if you haven't, if you have anything out there that I have not answered yet that you want to pop into the chat bar, that is the perfect place to do that. And yes, and thank you, Kim. I really want to thank everyone who made it all the way through and for taking the time to be present and allowing yourself to hear whatever it was that you needed to hear today, because often there's one little nugget of truth that rings true for you that you'll be able to take into your space and create a big shift in your life, whether or not you take the whole course, whether or not you go through your whole space. So for all of you who are still on the call, I'm going to send you a thank you and this tip sheet on how to optimize the abundance in your life, because who doesn't want more abundance? And I'm also going to draw a name at random of all the people on the call to receive a free coaching call with me up to an hour. And I just love talking with people and really getting to delve into the specifics of where you are and where you want to be and help you think about that next step for you, whatever that may look like. So I'm not seeing any questions that come in, but if you have a question, put it in there, and I'm gonna, while you think of one, because I'm sure somebody has a question out there, and often if you have a question, somebody else does too. So I'm gonna head on over to get the list of all the people who are on the call right now so that I can pick a random person to to do a free consult with. And I'm actually going to do it an old-fashioned way and just write two people down and pick a name. So while you think of your questions, I'm going to do that. Just give me a second and type your questions on into the bar, and I can stay on for another 5-10 minutes if you all have questions. But we will draw a name first. Let's see. There's probably a better way to do this. Oh, I'm just so happy to have you all on the call today, and really so thankful for my tribe out there, and really hope that all this resonated for you. Okay, so while I work on this, I'm going to get back to the chat bar. Okay, fantastic. So, oh, good questions coming in. So Patricia says, oh, silly, but do you know a place to donate those holy socks, for example? Good question. And that's something we also talk about in the course, is like, where do you take your stuff? Because often people have a much easier time releasing stuff when they know that it's going to somebody who is really going to appreciate it, right? And so for lots of things, there are avenues, right? You have, for books, you have libraries that often really love your donations and won't take everything, but they'll take lots of things. Or you have schools that really need your extra office supplies. And the holy socks, I don't know specifically if there's a place that likes holy socks. To be honest, I do make leg warmers for my daughter and little like arm warmers for my daughter who's 2.5 out of those, but I don't know what you can do with a whole drawer full. And I believe my client ended up throwing them away, you know, and it does seem wasteful, and it is difficult because we are living in a consumer culture where everything is temporary, right? And it's made to be replaced. And so it's really difficult to live in that time where you feel like you should be hanging on to things and making use of them and not being wasteful, but you have to let go of things. So, so there are, you know, avenues for lots of things, and some things, and then the local thrift store, of course, and then some things you just toss and you thank profusely. So thank you for your question, Kim, or for Patricia. Thank you. Sandra's saying, my daughter's room is in the relationship part of her home. What do you do in that instance? Good question. I actually had a client that I worked with who had their daughter's room in that. And it depends how old your daughter is, Sandra. So if you can type into the bar how old your daughter is, that can be helpful to me also. And while you do that, I'm just going to pick a name at random, and we'll see who gets a 1-hour free consult with me. Kim, hooray. And thank you, Kim. I'm so glad that it helped get you inspired. So I will be in touch with you, and we can see where you are. And sometimes it's just, you don't really even have to have specific questions. We talk about where you are, and something always comes up that really enables you to make a little shift that's super helpful. Yay, Kim, I'm so happy for you too. So Sandra, if you can put in how old your daughter is, that would be helpful. But in the meantime, so when you don't have control over that space necessarily, like say your daughter is a teenager, right? There's not all that much you can do in that space. If your daughter is younger, I would say, you know, I work with a lot of clients that have kids that have school-aged kids, because when your kids are younger, it's hard to make the time. But I work with a lot of people who have school-aged kids and are transitioning into teenage, you know, years, and all the stuff that comes with that transition. And creating this space can create so much opening in those relationships as they transition. It's really, really powerful. But when you have, so my client that I worked with before, her daughter was young enough for her to be able to have some control over the room, right? So so they were able to really clear out her stuff and just leave the joyful things. So if your daughter is under probably 10 or 11, potentially, you can go through that process with your kids. And sometimes I recommend that, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I do that with my own 7-year-old, and sometimes I don't. Most often I don't. And that's because when they're that young, we are responsible for their space. We are responsible for their well-being. And when their spaces, this is a whole other webinar that I will do another time on other people's stuff and kids' stuff and creating simple spaces for kids, because it's really important because it can really negatively impact. It can create kids who are more aggressive, who have those kind of ADD, distracted symptoms because their space is so overwhelming, because they are more sensitive to it than we are. They have not been around for so long, and so they're much more sensitive. Sandra, your daughter's 10. Okay, so every child is different. I would say that you have a lot more control when your daughter is 10 to be able to first, before you worry about what's in the relationship area, because there are other areas you can, for example, walk into your living room. In the back right corner of your living room is the relationship area of your living room. In your bedroom, the back right corner of your bedroom is the relationship area of your bedroom. So there are other areas that you do have absolute control over, where you can put things that reflect the relationship that you want. Because first, before you go into your daughter's room and say, I'm gonna do this for you, you need to touch on your own things. And that is a big rule of working with other people's stuff. That even could be a rule in this webinar itself, is before you go in and deal with other people's stuff, you have to deal with your own stuff. Not only because you realize all the stuff that you have that you can deal with, and then you're not being hypocritical, but also because all the people in your life will see how much fun you're having, will see how different you feel. And like, yes, you have to put in the time, but it's not drudgery, right? It's like, it's fun. You're feeling your joy and you're thanking the things that you're letting go of. And it really is a lot of fun. And so the people around you see how much fun you're having, and they want it too. Just like I told you about my client who made her bedroom oasis, and all her kids wanted that same thing. They wanted their own bedroom oasis. And so when you do that in your own space, all of a sudden your 10-year-old daughter will probably say, wait, what about me? And that's how it works with kids, right? They don't want it until you don't tell them to do it. You just do it yourself and they see how good it feels. And so there's that option. That being said, in kids' rooms, you have a lot of control, and it is your responsibility to make sure that that space is not overwhelming. And I've gone through, I have a 7-year-old and 2.5-year-old, so it's a little different, and I've worked with clients who've had all different numbers of age, all different ages of kids. And it really is dependent on the child, but often it's important for the parent to go in and pull out the things that they don't use anymore, right? They just collect and collect and collect toys at Christmas and birthdays and whatever it is. And it's so important for you to pull out the things they don't need anymore. They won't notice, right? You're not pulling out the things that make them happy, and you don't know 100% what those things are, but you're just pulling out the things that are broken, the things that they have not played with in a month or a week or whatever it is. And what I did when I went through my son's room the first time, because I was a little nervous, so I was like, he's going to notice, right? And I put all the stuff in a big black trash bag, and I put it in the trunk of our car, and I held on to it for a couple of weeks because I was like, maybe he's going to want something back that I took. And he noticed one thing within that couple week span, and it was kind of like, oh, what happened to this? And I forget what we said. We may have been honest with him. I hope we were. And or we may have said like wizards came and took it. I'm not sure. But and then it passed and there was nothing, right? He did not notice a thing. And he loves to read. And we culled out his books. And this is for another talk probably, but we culled out his books so that he could appreciate the ones that were remaining. And he didn't notice the books we took out, but all of a sudden he started pulling out the books that were left because they weren't so overwhelmed by hundreds of books. I think it was 20 or something. So there you go, Sandra. So Debbie says, do you find that sometimes grief gets superimposed on an item that makes it difficult to discern whether or not an item would bring joy? Good question, Debbie. So I wish I could talk with you. I don't actually think I have the capacity to talk because it'd be good to have a couple details. But yes, grief can get in the way of that. Like if you're in a place where you're having a really hard time feeling any joy because you're grieving, then it can be difficult. However, I would say that this is a really nice process to do in that case because you're taking a look at like your clothes, right? Like your tops. It's not that important, right? You're not taking a look at like the antiques that your mother gave you or your grandmother, those types of things in the beginning, right? You're looking at your clothes. And so it might be a nice process in order to really begin to feel your joy again, because the more you practice like, oh, does this mug make me happy? Oh yeah, I can feel it right there. Okay. Does this make me happy? And just practicing it makes it more and more possible to feel your joy and to recognize it. And so, yes, grief can get in the way. I did talk with someone a year or so ago who was asking about that. She said, I just don't find joy in anything that I'm doing right now. And so it can, and I would say, no matter where you are in the process, and, for you, Debbie, and also for everyone out there, to be really gentle with yourself, right? To let go of those judgments around your space. Like, oh, I haven't gotten to folding the laundry today. Like, that doesn't make me a bad person. That doesn't mean that I'm not enough. That just means that that's what my day looks like. And I have other important things, right? Whatever it is, like I haven't gotten around to doing my closet yet. And just be really gentle with yourself, because it doesn't help if we're our worst critics, right? That was really, when I first created openings for myself in my own like self-knowledge and wisdom, what really opened up for me was like, wow, I have all of these judgments looping in my head about myself. And it made it really difficult to be happy. It made it difficult to love other people, because you have to love yourself first. And so you have to find out what's looping in your head about yourself and bring it into your awareness. Because for me, like, those things still loop in my head, but I'm aware of them now. So they're not in my subconscious. So I can say, oh, that's not true, right? Like, I'm plenty enough, even though I didn't unload the dishwasher, even though I haven't done my tools yet, whatever it is, right? So be really gentle with yourself, and just starting the process of feeling your joy is really a fantastic process for anybody to do, but it's fantastic to be able to start feeling that joy, because you'll find that you have more and more and more joy in your life, the more joy that you're able to feel. So I don't see any other questions coming in, so I'm going to end with that. That seems like a nice place to end. And I just want to thank you all for being here live today and making the time for yourself. And I look forward to connecting with you on a future webinar. And go ahead and take a look at my course page, see if it's for you. There's so much good information on there, whether or not you decide that you need the support and the accountability to make that happen in your own space, or if you're going to try it on your own, which I fully support, and I think that everybody should. So however you're going to do it, be well and good luck, and we'll talk to you soon.